Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We will now begin today's final panel. So really delighted to be here after XM Chair Rita Jo Lewis and introduce you to a panel of all-star panelists from Turkish companies, U.S. companies, U.S. government. And really this is a theme that's been pervasive throughout the conference of third country partnerships. We heard about U.S. companies investing in Turkiye, Turkish companies investing in the United States, and also U.S. and Turkish companies teaming up in energy, construction, defense, tourism, real estate. And really these are the companies that will make it happen. We heard from XM Chair Lewis about this a partnership for global infrastructure and investment. There's also been the IMEC, the India-Middle East corridor. That's been slated as the future for the U.S. and other Western nations to compete with China. And if we're going to compete with China successfully, we really need Turkish contractors at our disposal to be able to do that and to team up and have these valuable partnerships. Just last year, Turkish contractors had $27 billion of service exports. 40 companies, Turkish companies, were on the top 250 contractors in the world, and many U.S. partnerships in Central Asia, Africa, Middle East, Europe, and we can certainly go beyond this list. So that's why I want to introduce you today to this panel. We'll be hearing from Selim Bora from Summa, Mehmet from Enka. We have Nidal Zayed from Pernix, Lally from U.S. government, and he's our new incoming commercial counselor for the Ankara embassy, regionally based. And then we also have Richwal from Bechtel. So very senior, we have CEOs from some of these Turkish companies, U.S. companies, principal vice president from Bechtel with enormous experience in the region, and can't wait to get started. So we'll turn it to you all just to give a brief introduction about your company. Love to hear where you're most active, both what sectors that you're working with, and also the regions in which you work.
Thank you, Jennifer. Welcome, everyone. My name is Selim Bora. I'm chairman of Summa construction company. We are 34 years old. That's a family-owned company, and I'm the second generation. Since 1989, we've been only working outside of Turkiye, and our first international contract was signed in Ashgabat, Turkmenistan. And since that date, we have only been working outside of Turkiye in the regions such as Central Asia, Russian Federation, Eastern Europe, Northern Africa, Latin America, and nowadays in Sub-Saharan Africa. We have delivered more than 100 projects, totaling about 20 million square feet of constructed built-up area. And we are mainly interested in infrastructure projects such as airports, stadiums, government buildings, healthcare facilities, and similar projects. And we are happy to contribute to the emerging markets economy with our knowledge, know-how, and if possible, through the partnerships. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Mehmet from Enka. I'm the chairman of Enka. Enka was founded in 1957 in Turkey, and since 1972 we've been working abroad, and last 30 years most of our jobs has been abroad. We worked in 62, 63 countries in all continents. We have lots of experience in all CIS countries. I think we will come to that. And we work in oil and gas, power, infrastructure, and buildings. In power, we have built more than 30,000 megawatts of power plants all around the world. In oil and gas, we worked in different places for all the oil majors, some of them together with Bechtel, some of them alone. In infrastructure, we have built more than 1,000 kilometers of motorway in 10 countries. Again, together with, we were together also, still together with Bechtel. On building works, we built government buildings, hospitals, stadiums, entertainment, hotels, like yourself. That's us.
All right. Well, I'm surrounded by giants, but I do have a story, and I think it's a very unique one. First of all, I want to say, being here at this conference is so awe-inspiring for me because I feel so at home, but this is my first conference. So shame on me for not having attended more of them before COVID. And the reason I feel at home is I've been working with Turkish contractors for the past 15 years. I've been going back and forth to Istanbul and Ankara, so I completely feel at home here. Thank you for having me, and thank you on the first time inviting me to the stage. We're unique in the sense that we're a U.S. company, but our work has primarily been overseas. And until 2015, we've never done work in the United States, believe it or not. So our primary overseas work is for the State Department. We build embassies, we build consulates, we do some work for the Department of Defense, and I've worked in several countries. We're currently building the largest U.S. consulate in the world in Lagos, Nigeria. Built a new embassy in Mozambique, and again, several other countries. We have a big presence in the South Pacific, in Fiji, of all places, and Vanuatu. We've worked in Saipan and Tinian, everywhere else other than the U.S. Long story. I won't bore you with that. But in 2015, we decided, okay, we need to really be American in our work. Didn't want to grow organically. That's too much of a tall order. So we approached KBR and bought from them the KBR Building Group, which originally was the B&K Building Group. We bought it in 2015, and the rest is history. We're now very sizable domestic business out of Raleigh-Durham. Headquarters is Chicago. And B&K, it's a wholly owned subsidiary. It does work for Fortune 1000 companies, from aerospace to biotech pharma, pharmaceutical processing, big laboratories, and things like that. So I'm really happy to be here. I'm excited. Thank you.
My name is Mike Lally. I'm the incoming Minister Council for Commercial Affairs in Ankara. Jennifer, I want to thank you and the Chamber and all the organizers as well, TAİK and others, for this great opportunity to reacquaint myself with Turkey, because I had the honor and the pleasure of working in Turkey from 2010 to 2014 with our great teams on the ground. I'm with the Department of Commerce. We are a global business. We work through our embassies and consulates in over 100 countries around the world, where we are providing business advisory. And I would like to also say, like, strategic partnering, about basically looking at projects, looking at how local companies can be working with American firms. And I think that's a great example here in Turkey. I know our focus today is on third country cooperation, and I think the chairperson, Lewis, kind of gave us a good start on that. I would say that in the context of this panel, about 5 years ago, we moved our regional operations to Turkey because we saw the numbers leading to that. Not only the triple increase in trade since I had been there just 10 years ago, but also I think that then now we have, I think, close to 2,000 American companies that are based in Turkey that then can provide that extra leap into other markets. So we're based in Ankara, obviously through our embassy and our consulate in Istanbul and in Izmir. And our business teams pursue a number of different campaigns, specifically in energy, in infrastructure, healthcare, obviously the digital element, and defense. And so we certainly look forward to renewing those relationships and continuing the relationships that we had as well. Thanks, Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer. Thank you all for having me up here. I'm Rich Wall. I run one of Bechtel's larger business lines in the energy business, primarily focused on chemicals, fuels, and everything downstream. Bechtel, as some of you may know, is 126, 127-year-old company now. We work globally. We work across, obviously, the energy sector. We're one of the largest LNG players in the world, built about a third of the world's capacity of LNG. We've also built about a third of the United States' nuclear capacity and some nuclear capacity abroad. We work in the infrastructure business, again, quite often with our colleagues and friends at Enka. And one of the reasons why I am so proud to be up here is because Bechtel's longest standing partnership in the world that we've had since our inception is with our Turkish partner, Enka. It is a foundation of so much of work that we've done together, so much work that we're proud of as a company and as a consortium together. Projects that are some of the most difficult to execute anywhere in the world. And I've had the pleasure over my tenure in the company of getting to know members of the Tara family, including Mehmet's dad, and other members of the executive management team. And I can tell you, I think it's an enduring relationship that Bechtel is incredibly proud of.
Great. Well, thank you all. And ending on that note, this is a partnership that we certainly would love to see replicated with other U.S. companies and Turkish companies, and not to compete directly, but to do more of this great work around the world. I'd love to hear from each one of you. What opportunities do you see for more U.S.-Turkish cooperation in third countries? And what types of added value do you think that U.S. companies can bring to this already very strong global brand that Turkish contractors have around the world? Who'd like to start off, Selim?
Yeah. That question is actually has a number of answers depending on which geographies we are talking about, right? If we are talking about frontier markets, this is one answer. If we are talking about mature markets, that's another answer. I'm more focused on the sub-Saharan Africa lately, and I can tell you that all the frontier markets that we are working, we are lacking financing, right? Because those governments, they need to have their infrastructure projects built in a rapid way, yet they have difficulty to reach out to the long-term financing. And to enable that, we always need either G2G arrangements between governments or with export credit agencies such as U.S. Exim Bank, Italian Exim Banks, European other Exim Banks, to step in to provide those long lead financing platform. But they have certain requirements. They need local content when we are talking about export credit agencies. And this local content can be sometimes difficult to achieve. And also there are certain criteria for those Exim banks to agree on. So it's very specific, geography specific, project specific, yet it's the best model to my opinion, because they give grace period up to from 2 to 5 years plus 10 to 15 years payback period, and these terms are very attractive for emerging markets. And I believe having U.S. partners, especially when it's about to challenge certain projects in the frontier markets, having U.S. partner to fulfill this content requirement, local content requirement, having U.S. Exim to have, for instance, long-term credit lines, and not only that, U.S. Development Finance Corporation and other financial institutions, they are ready to support these initiatives. So that's why I find it very interesting and important.
Great. Well, I see why you got a shout out from XM Chair during her speech. And definitely it seems like there's a lot of potential for this U.S. XM, Turk XM MOU to come to fruition for some of these projects in frontier markets. like in sub-Saharan Africa. But Mehmet, I'd love to hear from your perspective where you see
Selim
opportunities.
covered the financing part. Maybe he missed one part. We have to find financing, but it has to be quick also. We cannot wait years and years to get everything approved because our competitors, they come fast and they bring financing fast. Okay, we are much better in quality, much better in, and we can beat them on price, but this financing is the big challenge. And these countries, they don't have time to wait 3-4 years for these approvals. Geography-wise, yes, sub-Saharan Africa. I still believe in Iraq. Iraq is right next door to us, and it's a big Chinese market right now. We've been very active there, but it's lately Turkish contractors, Turkish and American, whoever. It's just Chinese now. So I am focusing on Iraq again. Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, we know those parts of the world, Central Asia very well. We speak the language, we understand each other, we communicate better than others. So we know those places. I think we should also focus in Central Asia. I think these are the sub-Saharan Africa you covered. Latin America?
Why not? Guyana, for instance, right? Guyana. US Exim opened, if I'm not mistaken, $2 billion credit line to overcome their immediate needs. And he just, Mehmet just flew from Guyana. Actually, he has the latest news from the ground.
Yeah, I was there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and yes, they had this line, $2 billion, but they couldn't touch it for 2 years now. So they were complaining, and what they said, Chinese contractors were there, active, and they said no one else is coming, so we will work with Chinese. And I said we are here. We'll bring more Turkish companies together. More Turkish businesses will come there. It's a huge. I think it's the next biggest market for lots of businesses.
There is a dilemma, though. Let me.
That's our life is dilemma.
There's a dilemma about finding the U.S. companies to partner up with, because the local domestic market is so big in the United States.
Exactly. Yes.
Nobody is interested to go outside, especially to frontier markets like Burkina Faso or Central African Republic or places like that. Bechtel, if I'm not mistaken, had 2 offices in the African continent, one being in Senegal, the other one being in Kenya, Nairobi. I think both offices are shut down. If I'm not mistaken.
We're still open in Kenya, I believe, and I believe we're still open in Cairo as well, up in North Africa.
So it's difficult to find the U.S. partners. You're lucky, Mehmet, that you have Bechtel.
Well, they are very busy also. They are very busy in U.S. But we are still looking for some new opportunities together.
Yeah.
There you go, please.
Yeah, I'd like to say that, again, another reason my company, I'm CEO and chairman of it, is very unique, is we started overseas, fully American, and we do secret, top secret level work, big work. The Lagos consulate is $350 million. But we started overseas, and then, as I explained, we bought from KBR and established ourselves deeply, having bought a company that's been around for 60 years. So we're not risk averse, Pernix, and working in all these places you guys are talking about. In fact, in my office, we joke about, we're pretty good in embassy work, but we talk about, hey, we're duplicating Nidal Enka, and we're going to duplicate Bechtel Enka. That's how we talk about it. That's our vision, and we have no issue. So, Selim, I've known you for 20 years, my friend. I'm your man. I'm not afraid of working anywhere you're willing to work. And parlaying B&K and what it does and has done in the past, as an example, they built in Charlotte the Dreamliner assembly plant. $850 million job. They build for Bell helicopter assembly plants. They build for Airbus in the U.S. They build for many Fortune 1000 companies who build all over the world. So there's another angle to this. We're ready to chase Boeing. We're ready to chase Novo Nordisk, Eli Lilly, Merck, these companies that we do business for who want to set up shop in less expensive jurisdictions potentially and don't have the easy access to local contracting. So that's another angle. Of course, I agree with everything that you guys have said. I mean, that's kind of why we're here. And then lastly, not developing world, but we would love to be working with a Turkish company here in the States. The panels this week were so eye-opening for me. Turkish companies investing here can be a joint venture partner with us and use what we have as a platform for significant work in the States. So that was just a pitch for Pernix. Non-relevant necessarily, but thank you.
Great, and Michael, I'd love to get your insights on, we talked about some of the financing and the lag, and the chair from XM also said communications key, early applications key. What other key project criteria are key for success in financing?
Yeah, I mean, having kind of worked at this from Central Asia angle, spent time in the Caucasus and others, I kind of seen this a little bit from the inside out. And I guess maybe to kind of just take it up a level, Jennifer, before I come back to your direct question, I think one of the things that is kind of, that I see that is a very big advantage of these U.S.-Turkish partnerships, especially in large projects, and I call it at the molecular level, because, I mean, with respect to Nidal Bey's sort of experience, American companies are generally very conservative when they're looking at overseas. They have good reasons to do so. There's 3 major bits of spend out there in the United States right now, including Inflation Reduction Act, bipartisan infrastructure funding as well, that keep the businesses here naturally, as has been pointed out before. But what I found is that's been very effective is that when we're working with Turkish firms, it changes that molecular kind of balance a little bit, because Turks are always very fearless about going out and doing new projects, whether it would be in Africa or Central Asia or others, and that brings the American company along. It provides that level of comfort that's not normally there, because they could look at a project list and say, well, we've done these 6 or 7 things in Sub-Saharan Africa or Central Asia. So I think that's one of the things that can't be overlooked. So that's great from a, I guess maybe a philosophical perspective, but then what happens when you get to the real project level? I think there's kind of 2 challenges on that, and maybe I'll think about how to describe how we get there. Is obviously, first and foremost, is that what the projects are going to lead to. The money and the spend and the contract is going to drive the business as much as anything else. And then, looking again at what you talked about, project criteria, what kind of credible offtake is going to be there? XM cover is very important, obviously. Is it a sovereign debt? Are you looking at limited recourse project finance and some of this, which has been done effectively in a number of markets? And how to secure a loan, because that's often a problem. When you look at XM's coverage, obviously they will give you, I think, 7 or 8 different sort of categories of how they'll cover. In more risky markets, looking at sovereign, that becomes obviously a challenge in terms of securing that. But then what can be done on a project basis, I think, is important. And then I think, but I think I take it back to the beginning, which is where when we go out and we bring companies together and we're recruiting to take American firms in Turkey or Turkish firms forthright into other markets, we're leading our marketing and our recruitment efforts through the Turkish management, because I think that really helps to kind of provide that level of comfort for American corporates to be looking at that 3rd level.
Very good. And from Bechtel's perspective, did you see additional opportunities in the regions you're working or in other subsectors within energy and chemicals?
Well, I don't want to repeat what everyone said, but yeah, the U.S. market is very busy right now. We've got, we almost have a concentration risk in the United States, if that sounds silly. But as a global company, that's actually how we look at it. The world presents great opportunities. our Turkish brothers and sisters are perhaps a little bit more entrepreneurial and willing to take on more risk, as was pointed out. That can be a good thing for us because we like to stay together. But we are cautious because as an American firm and an established American firm, one of the reasons why our partnership has been so successful over the years is because we share the same ethics, we share the same philosophy, we share the same vision in terms of what it is we want to deliver for our customers. And we don't compromise on that. And as a result, it narrows down some of the places where we're comfortable working at times. But to the broader point, I don't think there's anything that America and Turkey together at any level can't do. And I don't think that there's a single project anywhere in the world, no matter how complex it is, that the firms on this stage can't go perform. And it's only going to be better if we perform it together.
Great. Well, we've heard a lot about the opportunities. We said Sub-Saharan Africa, Middle East, Central Asia, the Americas. One that we didn't say that I was maybe expecting was Ukraine. What do you think about the opportunities for rebuilding Ukraine and, of course, the importance to bolstering European and Black Sea security? What are some of those opportunities and challenges for U.S.-Turkish partnership when many of those rebuilding efforts will ramp up?
Well, the war needs to be finished first,
Of course.
at least.
That would be a positive. That would promote a better working environment.
I mean, eventually, I think we will all be there at some point. I don't know when. Hope soon. If the war ends soon, we'll take the next flight. I mean, all the Turkish contractors, that's what we do. We go to the difficult places. I think there are some Turkish contractors who are working in Ukraine right now, helping to rebuild the infrastructure. But I think for us, at least as a Bechtel Enka, we have some time to wait.
And maybe the reason why we are not talking about Ukraine, it's not like a foreign country to us. It's just a neighboring country, and it's only 2 hours flight distance. So, it's not like you need to travel a lot and try to adapt yourself. We were there already, so it's. And by the way, the master plan for reconstruction efforts for Ukraine was designed in Ankara at the Turkish Contractors Association's building, and there was an MOU signed where the reconstruction efforts task force was created. So we are naturally the number one supporting country for those efforts, and together with our U.S. partners, I think we are the best fit to take those challenges.
And what do you see with critical mining and critical minerals opportunities? We've heard a lot about it at the conference today. At the U.S. Chamber, we've seen a huge increase in interest, both from our members and also from a lot of the governments that we work with around the world. Do you think this is an area where U.S.-Turkish companies can team up and provide support for critical minerals development?
I'm not an expert on mining development part, at least, so.
We have an arm of our business. One of our global businesses is actually the mining and metals business, not actually the extraction of the minerals, but the processing of those. So again, think process plant. Yes, I think is the simple answer to the question. As more and more minerals are needed, both the ones that are commonplace today in terms of copper and in terms of rare earths that are more and more difficult to find and always seem to be located in some of those places that you don't actually want to go live in. It's a huge opportunity, I think, for the global construction market.
If I could just mention, Jennifer, and I want to double back to your Ukraine point as well, is that I think, as was mentioned by the chairwoman with regard to Exim Bank, is that the green economy is pushing this huge incentive through the supply chain in terms of how we're going to be looking at critical mineral sourcing. And I think as many people know, I mean, 80, 90 or more % of that chain is owned by PRC. And that's why you saw XM trying to step up and looking at how we're going to be able to do that, because we don't want to go from one dependency on one fossil fuels to another one on critical minerals. And so I think that's, again, where, U.S. Turkish companies working together can provide that alternative. Because right now, if you're looking at it from a host government alternative perspective, wherever you might be, sub-Saharan Africa or Central Asia, there is largely only one game in town from a finance perspective and from a project perspective. And we need to be able to come with that offer. And I think that based upon the experience that I've seen in Capitol and even back here in Washington, that's a story that we can tell very well. Just to double back on the Ukraine element as well, I think as was pointed out, obviously stopping the war is the #1 issue, right? But I think also, again, that's a really fantastic opportunity for U.S. Turkish firms working together. It was great to know that what the Turkish Contractors Association has done already on that, thinking ahead of how that will work. Because whether you're looking at housing and you're looking at energy and you're looking at healthcare and all the other infrastructure that has been destroyed, you're seeing where Turkey has done that worldwide, where they've been opportunities to provide that housing, that energy, that infrastructure that has been a hallmark of Turkish contractors. And by having that joined, where you have a U.S. Turkey component, I think can be very good. And then one other element I would mention, Jennifer, is I think that, if you look at Bechtel Enka or other companies that have worked together in this space, making very good use of local labor and local resources. And I think that's going to be very important in Ukraine because you have skilled labor, but you're going to have to create that opportunities to bring back people who have been displaced, people who have left the country, obviously, because of the war. And by structuring those contracts and bringing back that local skilled labor will be a very important virtuous cycle to create very quickly early on.
Yeah, just to build on that point, we've worked together in Kazakhstan for 30 years, maybe a little longer than that. Last year when we were at peak on the last job we did, we probably had 10 to 12,000 employees that were working for the joint company that we use in Kazakhstan, and 92% of those employees were Kazakhs.
It was 100% Turkish 30 years ago and 92-93% Kazakh now.
There's the example.
Huge labor opportunities that the sector, of course, provides. Looking into some more of these financing incentives, do you have any recommendations for our governments, international financial institutions like EBRD, World Bank, and just market-based incentives? Anything that you can identify that you really think would help move the needle and open up more financing?
I would say accelerate the application process is the key factor here, because, by the time an application is reviewed, we already finished the construction.
Michael, I think you can help us when you get to Ankara on that one.
I have a comment on that.
Please.
This is not my idea, my friend Bah's idea, but I think it's a brilliant idea to call the chairwoman and Exim Bank as an institution to task in terms of helping to truly bridge U.S. Turkish resources. And part of the discussion we were having over lunch was the 50-60% U.S. content is sometimes cost prohibitive. Let's just be honest about it. When she says, hey, we're going to allow you to compete against the Chinese, and what does that mean? Lower interest rate, longer term. But we can't really beat them on the equipment, on the material, and it does not, the lower cost of funding doesn't overcome that hurdle. So the idea was, hey, why not allow a certain percentage from the Turkish market to count towards that 60 or 50%? So let's say it's 20 US, 40 Turkish, here's your 60, come on, let's get it together if you really want to compete. So I thought it was great, and I did not take it as my own idea, so in the public forum here. And one other thing, sticking with the theme of uniqueness, Pernix, through COVID and all that we suffered a lot. In Mozambique, in our embassy that we were building with Renaissance, we were losing $1.5 million a month because of COVID, and we never demobilized, as you know. But as a result, interesting statistics. My chief estimator is Turkish. My vice president of international work is Turkish. My head of controls is Turkish. My scheduler, lead scheduler, is Turkish. These are my people I'm integrating the team, so I'm kind of that's how much respect I have for the quality of the people themselves. From a corporate to corporate perspective, sometimes there are cultural massaging that needs to happen. And you guys know that, and you've overcome that obstacle. But when the people get together, it's just miraculous at times. So when you ask me what is Pernix senior, middle, senior staff composed of, it's a true combination of Turkish, American, and virtual sometimes, but I have Turks and I have the right visas, and they come to Lombard and they're part of my team. So maybe that idea can fly.
Yeah,
With you, Selim, you can make it happen. We all witnessed it, you know.
That's true, and maybe there should be a new legislation, a Turkish-American Joint Venture Act or something like that, to give some more privilege to, you know.
We have a
Need help with
lobbyist or
Congress
two
on
and
that
all.
Go ahead, Michael, please. No, please.
Okay. No, I would just add that, I think that when we look at kind of what's going to be the leverage that's going to kind of produce deals and kind of, attract, I won't speak on behalf of XM or DFC, but I think one element that really has broad buy-in here in Washington is what can be done to counter a lot of the PRC economic effort on finance, on supply, and others. And obviously, Congress wrote into some of the legislation and some of the authorization, the funding of how to do that. And I think that, as kind of almost I want to say a political argument, but as the leverage point to say we can identify projects where we can do that face-to-face element, where U.S. Turkish firms are working together to counter another bid, I think that provides a compelling narrative to get to those applications and those loan applications. And I take on board the issues of the long processing time, because we have to move better, we have to move at the speed of business on that, and we can't be taking 12, 18, 24 months, because as was pointed out before, the project's over. But I think that using that kind of PRC angle is going to be very important going forward to make that case.
So I won't pile on the speed topic. I think we've hit XM over the head with the speed issue. But I do think that there is an opportunity for better alignment between XM and some of the OECD, counterparts. The level of content, where that content comes from, how it counts, the level you need, going back to the competitiveness issue. We should not act like this is a harder problem than what it is, okay? If you wanna figure out how to fix this problem, have somebody that's been through a long XM process go run XM, okay? And you will see things change quickly. I also think better rules for DFC in terms of how their rules of engagement and the size of projects that they can and should be engaged with is an opportunity for us to clarify going forward.
I have a question for you, if you don't mind. I read a book on Bechtel. As you know, one of your greatest Bechtel executives was chairman of Pernix for 6-7 years. Became my mentor, great guy, Don Gunther. We both know and love him. And I know that in the history of Bechtel and the way Mr. Bechtel grew the company, in part, was through excellence. Do you know if back in those years, the application process and the financing process was just as long and arduous as it is today?
It was probably a phone call back in the day, which was probably not the right answer either.
Yeah.
Okay, but I think that there's clearly had, no, it was not what it is today.
No,
okay,
right.
you've got a you've got a level of bureaucracy that's crept in, which again it all stems from good motives, okay? I mean, there's nobody who sits around and says, how do we slow down the process of getting money out and making companies that we care for less competitive, okay? That is, so all of this, just like every other, process or procedure that's come into being that's become overburdensome, its origins all had good motives, but just in time, it's piled on to each other to the point where it's become unworkable. And I'm not saying, you're not hearing me say, or Bechtel saying that XM is not unworkable. It's a great organization that has the ability to do and does tremendous good in the world. It can do more. And I think that's the opportunity.
Well, I'll add one more thing. I think we had enough exim here. So another, I think, important thing is the support from the embassies, both U.S. Embassy and Turkish Embassy in the third countries. And we got this in many places, and it really makes a huge difference. And sometimes we don't even hear about the opportunities in that country. We hear when Chinese competitors sign and start the construction. So if we can work closely, we already do, but with both Turkish and U.S. embassies, I think that will help all the companies, both Turkish and American companies. That's.
If I can just add something to that, Jennifer. Mehmet, but you bring up a good point. I remember when we led a mission of about maybe 20 companies a few years ago out to Kazakhstan, if I recall it was, and we did deliberate stops in both embassies. We got briefings from the American Embassy in Kazakhstan, from the Turkish Embassy in Kazakhstan. And maybe there was a 40% overlap in the brief, but there was about a 60% lack of overlap where we were able to fill things in. And I think what it did was it put both of our missions, that is Turkey and the United States, on point, that, okay, well, we need to be front foot on a number of these issues. And I remember a lot of our actual members were Turkish representatives of American firms, as pointed out, they're GMs or CEOs or others. And it was very interesting to watch all of this play out. And it was really quite effective. And people said if that was the one thing that they'll remember, it was going from one embassy to another, hearing the same thing, perhaps, but hearing different things about the same topic that really gave them a little bit of a competitive edge. So thank you for that point.
Good point.
Great, thank you all for your comments. And to add on the Kazakhstan business mission, within the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, we're home to U.S. Türkiye Business Council, U.S. Kazakhstan Business Council, and we are planning another trade mission to Kazakhstan, and we want to make this with Turkish companies and U.S. companies to jointly explore these opportunities, and we won't miss the meeting at the Turkish Embassy either. Thank you for that. Maybe to close us out, if you'd like to leave us with some final thoughts, final recommendations. And we heard from Pernix in an open invitation for Turkish companies that are looking for a partner in the U.S. For all of you, what do you think are good partnership models or opportunities for Turkish companies to find U.S. companies and vice versa?
Being here.
Everybody's looking at this. I guess I'm the last one.
For me,
I think Rich answered that question. I mean,
it's basic blocking and tackling. It is find people who share your values, find people who share your work ethic, align on a common goal, and like the people you work with, because in any form of business, you have to trust each other, and that trust is critical to your success. And again, on behalf of Bechtel, Mehmet, thank you for your partnership and your family's partnership and your company's partnership for the past 30 plus years.
I'll add one more thing. Our first tender with Bechtel was Atatürk Dam in Turkey. This is a very large hydro project, and we couldn't get it at that time. This was the first, when we first tried, and we didn't give up, and we got on the second job. So we shouldn't also give up on trying.
Jennifer, I would just add that, I think this element of third country cooperation has been around for a number of years, and certainly when you looked at the fall of the Soviet Union back in the 90s and the opening up of these 15 new markets, and of course Kazakhstan and this partnership that has just been discussed is probably one of the shining examples of that. it's not a new concept of third country cooperation, but I think as Mehmet Bey said, I think now because the U.S. Turkey business phase is entering a whole qualitative new level. 2,000 American companies based in Turkey, over $30 billion in trade last year combined, trying to get it to 100 billion. Ultimately the volume begins to take on a whole kind of momentum of its own. So we have to keep working to develop those projects. One of the things that I think has been most effective very concretely, our Trade and Development Agency has provided feasibility study funding to provide early proof of concept of projects. You look at some of the geothermal work that was been done outside of Izmir, a number of renewable efforts. Turkey has been a very major focus of TDA to provide real money. Again, we're not talking billions or millions. We're talking about a cost share on feasibility studies, on other aspects of business development early on in the project life cycle. And then that becomes a proof of concept that is being taken to other countries. So that's one of the things I look forward to working with you all on as we get out to Ankara.
Right, well, thank you. Maybe, Selim, do you want to leave us with any of your final thoughts?
Fine. One of the issue that I'm always worried is some of the boxes that we need to tick when we make applications to US DFC, US Exim, other financial institutions, other ECAs, etc. This tendering process, right? They always say, did you get this deal through tendering process? I mean, if we say no, that application is thrown in the garbage immediately. So some countries, they have in their laws, it says if that's an emergency project for the country, there is no need to make a tender. So there should be some flexibility in those application terms and rules. When you make everything, try to make everything one standard form, it doesn't just fit the purpose. I mean, imagine like there's a flood, right? And you need to do a flood protection project for the next rainy season, and that's an emergency project. And who is going to make the tender, and who is going to evaluate all those procedures? And the rainy season is just 9 months away. So, I mean, certain things needs to be more flexibly handled. I think that's my comment.
Nidal?
Yeah, and that happens here, by the way. I mean, I was awarded a $140 million project from the State Department in Iraq on a sole source basis because they knew I could do the work. I got a phone call that said, hey, we know you can do the work because you're doing it 5 kilometers away, and the company that's doing the work we want you to do has failed. We don't have time to wait. They wrote this entire sole source justification, published it, and they gave us the project. So I completely agree with you, Selim. There needs to be the flexibility. Back to Exim Bank, I guess we came full circle, but that's important. And as far as last words on relationships with Turkish companies, it's about respect. It's about not just respect for the individuals, but at least in the embassy work, Mehmet, as you well know, it's respect for the specification. It's respect for the seriousness that our State Department takes the specifications. And we said no yesterday, it's still no today, it's still no till the last day of the job. You can't have substitutions that come from China or that come from wherever. Adhere to the specs, finish the job on time, and there's plenty of profit. Don't burn time away. So it's respect is critical, and it takes time. We talked about it last night. You and Cadell suffered the first 4 jobs. And I think the rumor is, or the myth is, you guys were kind of, okay, well, you agreed to disagree, you're going to walk away. The 2 bosses said, okay, let's try one more time.
That's true.
Right? I just hear that through the grapevine. They tried one more time, of course, categorizing the lessons learned, and the rest is history. I mean, you've done maybe 50 embassies or something. So
So we'll keep trying to find the right partners for the right project.
Probably.
Great, and I think too that there's certainly a scope to put some of these recommendations into the bilateral dialogue with both governments so that they can quickly identify a project and try to mobilize either the XM or the right people around it and those types of approvals. So something we'll be working on. But overall, just want to thank you, all the panelists. And this particular session is really important because it's our last one, and this is very forward-looking. You know, it's the U.S. Turkish partnership in construction that's going to help us build the future for our nations and for the world in a sustainable way, looking at digitization, green energy. I mean, this is where it all comes together in full circle. So I want to thank you all for your really great comments.
Thank you, Jennifer.
You did a wonderful job.
And before we get up, also want to thank everyone in the room for all of your support, your time here today and yesterday, to our amazing partners, TAİK and to ABTR. And we'll now have one final session from Murat Bey to send us on our way. Thank you.
Sorry. Perfect. Well, not really a session for sure, just a thank you. And thank you everyone, by the way, for this panel as well. It was very, very eye-opening and very valuable. Well, I just wanted to take a moment or two, not longer, I promise, to thank to everyone who had contributed immensely to this ATC. It was my first ATC as an attendee as well, not just as the chair of TAİK, but just as an attendee itself. And I just did not know what the benchmark was for it to be a successful ATC. And one of the things that I heard along the way was if the second day is full, that means it's a very successful ATC. And today, during breakfast and lunch, there really was no seat left for anyone else other than the people in the room. And then it makes us feel like it has been a very successful ACT. But I just came up here without, it wasn't in the plan, to thank everyone in person. And I want to do that also with sharing an anecdote from last night at the embassy. During the last part of the reception, I was speaking to one of our panel coordinators, one of our board members, and he apparently invited an American company's CEO for the ATC panel on 30th of April. And he said, Mrs. CEO, we would like to have you in our panel on the 9th or 10th of May. And she answered as follows, 2025, right? So the point here is that this has taken place literally in 2.5 weeks. And this was incredibly hard work. This was unbelievable. I think it was crazy. And in this, I will start with our U.S. Chamber friends. Of course, Kush's leadership was very valuable. The day the presidential visit was, the conflict was understood with the scheduling, Kush called me and he said, Murat, we're doubling down on this. We're going to do all the support we can give. And then, of course, I will afterwards open a little paragraph there, but of course, Jennifer, Rüya, Dilek, Diane, and Natalie, we are grateful to every one of you from the chamber. And Greg from the ATBR was also of great help. I told him half an hour ago that his ears will ring in a little bit because I'm going to thank him as well. And of course, from our side, Mary, Nil, Melik, Duygu, Bekir, Ramazan, Selin, Ahmet, Toygun, Ensar, Semih ve Yiğit. I'm grateful to all of you, but also opening up a small chapter for Mary and for Jennifer, because you have not just run your teams and the processes, but you have also had to manage us, your difficult bosses, meaning your difficult peers, or not bosses, obviously. This is, but it was a stressful process, and they had to also manage us and their boards. Therefore, Mary, Jennifer, phenomenal job, incredible job. We are so proud, we cannot even tell. I was trying to find you, Jennifer. We are grateful, and this was incredible. And the second day success made us feel even more proud. We were proud yesterday. We thanked everyone before, our government officers who came all the way for 24 hours, of course our sponsors, but of course Nail Bey's support was incredibly valuable. But I wanted to name every single hero behind this today, especially. Thank you. Very grateful.